Hello, I'm Hallie Madeline, and welcome to the Happy Humans podcast. By listening to this podcast, you'll get to dive deep into the beautiful messiness of life with us and explore what it feels like to honor the ebbs and flows. We'll be interviewing inspiring humans about their growth journeys, as well as solo casts from me, all exploring the idea of showing up for ourselves so we can show up for the world. When we're on the path of self-growth, our intention is creating deeper connections within ourselves and the world around us. So this podcast is all about building a community around genuine, vulnerable connection with humans who are embodying their authentic selves and honoring their journey as we collectively center on the intention to create more healing and compassion in the world. We get real about our relationships with ourselves and alchemizing lessons as we honor the power of our stories and the unique beauty in all of us. Self-care starts within, but it doesn't end within. We heal ourselves so that we can heal the world. Because when each of us connects to our own unique purpose here as a human, the world becomes a more compassionate, magical place. The Happy Humans podcast is both produced by and sponsored by Free Energy Collective. So my path as a photographer and creative director over the past 4 years has led me to founding the Free Energy Collective. It's a full-service media agency focused on authentic content creation. So we focus on telling inspiring stories through videos and photos, serving both brands and humans who are creating a better world. Creativity has the power to change the world, and anyone can create content, but it's really the energy behind the collaboration that truly allows the unique magic of you and your brand to shine through. It really shows in content when people feel valued and are enjoying themselves. So Free Energy Collective believes in creating connected relationships with our clients and connecting on a human level as creators. Because play and fun are just as important as focusing on high-quality work and connected communication. Life is meant to be enjoyed and magic is meant to be created. So every photo and video shoot blends playful fun and powerful storytelling together to capture your unique energy. Free Energy Collective collaborates with human and brand clients who believe in a better world and center their intentions around it. The energy channeled by co-creating magic together is what generates a positive experience for everyone involved. So the content might not be free, but the energy always is. And that's the power of the collective. All right, I'm so excited to finally share this episode with you guys with the one and only Julia, also known as Fit, Fat, and All That. So she is an eating disorder recovery coach, and she also speaks a lot about body acceptance on Instagram and social media. She has helped so many women, myself included, shift our relationships with our bodies and how we express ourselves, and she does a lot of that through learning positive self-talk and just bringing awareness to how we speak to ourselves. And we're diving so deep on all of that in this episode of kind of how she helps women take back autonomy of being in control of how we feel about our bodies. And we're also diving deep into just women's history and the impact that society and the male gaze has on women's self-worth and our relationships with our bodies, as well as feeling safe to express our femininity, our sensuality. And we also dive deep into emotions and how we relate to our emotions in this episode, and just bringing awareness to feeling supported and safe when we don't feel good without feeling like we are being shamed or fixed, and how that has all played a role in her relationship with her partner Carl, how they've cultivated a healthy relationship there. And then we're also just talking about honoring our flow of our cycles as women and redefining movement in the fitness industry to honor what feels good rather than feeling pressured from outside sources or what we think it should look or feel like. So I'm so excited to share this episode with you guys. We kind of talk and dive deep on so many different topics, and Julia is just absolutely incredible, and she brings so much positive energy to so many important topics, and she's helping so many people. So without further ado, here is my interview with Julia. All right. Hi, everybody. We are here today with Julia, also known as Fit, Fat, and All That on Instagram. And welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yay.
Especially because I feel like we haven't met in person, but like I know you through Instagram. So it's like recording and meeting you.
I know. This is perfect.
I know.
This is like a live tape of our first ever interaction.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are, all the amazing things you're up to right now?
Yeah. So, God, I don't even know where to start. So I do like body acceptance influencing, and I do like brand partnerships and all that good stuff. And I really do enjoy that, like partnering with brands that are like size inclusive and diverse. And especially right now, I just think it's so great to be able to use like platforms to like share with what's going on in the world. And I just love that. Although, like what we just said, it can be so stressful. Like Instagram can be so good, but so bad.
Balance.
Yeah. And I'm also an eating disorder recovery coach, which that's like my ultimate passion. And it took me a long time to get here. But I love my job. So I work with all different types of women that struggle with body image issues, their relationship with food and fitness. And I do one-on-one coaching. So yeah, that's it.
Amazing. That's all such incredible and necessary work. And how did you kind of like stumble upon this path and like this career path? And like, I mean, were you growing up seeing that you would be an eating disorder?
No. Oh my gosh. No, I honestly, from like 4th grade on, I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. And so I went to Michigan State, graduated with my elementary education degree. And I was so excited to do this. And then I got my first teaching job, and it was a terrible experience. It was so bad. I was basically just thrown into a classroom that was like a prison cell with like no windows, no resources, no books. And it was like a charter school in Detroit. And it was just a horrible experience. I got sexually harassed by my like 65-year-old principal, and just I cried every day. And I was like, I thought this was supposed to be like, when I did this, I thought I was supposed to be like, oh, this is why I'm doing it.
Right.
And I was so passionate about like the mental health of the children, but there were just so many barriers when it comes to teaching that I wasn't even able to teach. And especially being in an urban community with like a lot of like low socioeconomic like families, it was just, I was a social worker, a mom, a dad, like it was so much. So I ended up moving to Los Angeles. I like quit that job. I broke up with a boyfriend of 4 years that I like realized this is not what I wanted, because I was like, I'll be a teacher and then be a cute wife and live in Michigan. I'll be so happy. And then I was like, ooh, this is not what I thought it would be. So I moved out to LA kind of on a whim. My sister was living out there at the time, and I just nannied for a long time. And I met the most amazing family. I'm still super close with them, and we'll actually see them next weekend. And I was with them for about 3 years. And it was just nice because I could just kind of figure out what I needed to do and what like I was really passionate about. And when I moved out to LA, I was 24, and I had struggled with an eating disorder for like 10 years. My mom did, my sister did, a lot of like women in my family did as well. And I was always so intrigued and interested about mental health and eating disorders. And then I also had my own, which was just weird. But yeah, when I moved out to LA, I was like, if I moved to LA, I got to get my shit under control, because it's like the mecca of body image issues and like eating disorders. So I decided to like seek out a therapist, and I was always really interested in this like body acceptance, self-love kind of community. And I just started going to therapy, working through my own recovery, started like going to events and networking, and just sharing that all on Instagram. And it just kind of started to take off. And I was like, wow, I really love this space. I love like public speaking. I love all of this stuff. And I love educating women on like what I'm currently learning. And then when I moved to Denver, I nannied for a little bit, but I was like, man, I really want to get into this like coaching space or working in a treatment center. And I originally moved here because there are a lot of great treatment centers for eating disorders here. And then one of my best friends started a recovery coaching business. She's like a master's level clinician in eating disorder therapy, and she has a coaching curriculum, and she was like, I'll train you. And so she trained me, and it was February of 2019. I like quit my nannying job, turned 29, and I launched my like coaching business. And that's like kind of how I got to where I was. And it's been so successful. It's been so good. And it's like, it makes me so happy. And I'm like, oh, this is like the feeling I'd been waiting for with like what I wanted to do with my career. Cause I felt really lost. I had so many odd-end jobs. Like I worked at like a roofing company for a hot second.
For sure, yeah.
And I'm just like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I don't give a fuck about roofs. Like, you know? And so it was just like such a relief to be like, this feels right.
Totally.
Yeah.
And something that's so connected to like your purpose and
yeah.
just alchemizing that pain into your purpose. And
yeah, it just came full circle. It was just so nice.
For real. And I feel like that it sometimes just takes that of just like experimenting and like trying on different things and just seeing like, that feeling of like, what actually feels fulfilling. So I guess what has been like the most fulfilling part of this career path, and what has been like the biggest challenge with this career path?
The most fulfilling is just like, I love working with women and seeing them just like evolve over time and see like these like light bulb moments where they're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Like, I didn't realize I felt this way because of what we've been manipulated by the media to believe and what my parents have told me. And when they can take back this like autonomy of like, I'm in control of like how I feel about my body, and like, and just seeing them like evolve is just like, it makes me so happy. And then to have like my clients message me after, you know, we've worked together of like, oh my God, this is a win, or I bought this bikini and I feel really good, and this is the first time I've gone to the beach, and it just like makes me so happy because every woman I've been around has had some sort of body image issues or weird relationship with food, and I'm like, something's got to shift here. And so that has just been so fulfilling for me. And I think the biggest challenge that I'm finding is being able to kind of protect my energy, because I am working with such heavy stuff.
For sure.
While also simultaneously still working on my shit too. You know, like knowing that just because I'm recovered from my eating disorder doesn't mean I'm not triggered or don't have bad body days. And so being able to show up for my clients when maybe I'm not feeling my best, and really learning how to like compartmentalize that stuff. And that's just been a challenge, especially during the pandemic. And like, I was nervous I wasn't going to get any clients, and now I have the most I've ever had, which is great. But I'm also like, so much is happening in the world, and I have a shit ton of clients to show up for. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to like kind of protect that like mental space.
Totally. I feel like boundaries and like compartmentalization are huge.
Yeah.
Especially in emotional work and when you're like accessible on Instagram at any moment. Like,
Well, I have an assistant now that like does most of my DMs, and like it is the best thing ever. And it's like, especially during, you know, this time, I think a lot of people think like influencers are supposed to be everything and are supposed to be so knowledgeable about every single topic and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I'm one person with my own shit, my own job. Like, and so knowing that like, I have to have really strong boundaries with Instagram, because like the trolls or like keyboard warriors, I'm like, fuck off.
The worst.
Like, it's the worst. Yeah. So boundaries has been like really hard, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I feel like that's a continuous process.
Yeah. I know boundaries are so difficult.
Right. Especially like in this day and age. And yeah, I can't even imagine like with having like a platform like that big too, of like, I mean, I'm sure you get so much positive feedback, but then there's so many people that take out their anger behind the keyboard.
I know. And I try to like, I'm such an empath, and I try to really understand like, hurt people, or misery loves company. But sometimes like, did you have to like fucking send them? Like, did you have to? And it always seems to happen when it's like, I'm also struggling, and it's like they like call out the thing I'm like insecure about most. But what I have been doing on Instagram is actually talking about when I'm being trolled and when I'm really upset about it. And like, one time I didn't even mean to start crying, but I was just so upset because it was something that I was already triggered about, of gaining weight during this pandemic, and someone calling that out and really just vocalizing like, this is the shit that women and people experience. This isn't normal behavior, and it's okay if you feel triggered and hurt by this. And like really just being open and honest about hey, we're all human, and like this shit sucks, even if, you know, we have a platform and we get this on the regular, like, you know, it still hurts to hear that stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm so glad, like, good for you for being strong enough to like share that so vulnerably, because I'm sure so many people deal with like those exact same things and those types of comments, and just that numbing, like the like keyboard of the phone like protects us from being like, there's an actual real life human on the other side. I know,
it just like, blows my mind that there are some really disturbed humans out there.
For real. The internet is all things good and bad at the same time.
I know.
It's wild. Like, I feel like in the past few years, so like I'm a photographer and I'm very much in like the commercial like content creation industry, and like I've been doing this for I guess almost 4 years now, and like I feel like even in this time span, it has like shifted so much to being like so much more inclusive.
Oh my God, yes.
It used to be like the same exact type of model, and honestly, I still kind of see that from like photographers. A lot of times, male photographers. Just
it's always
same
male
body,
photographer.
Like over and over and over again.
Yep. Yeah, and that stuff, like we subconsciously are just taking that information in, and we don't even realize it. And the second I started unfollowing pages that either did that or weren't inclusive, and like following like fat women and black women and trans, and like I'm like, it just makes me like, I'm not triggered as much because I'm like, like I'm not only following girls that are a size 2 that are like tight toned and tanned, and like really just making sure that my feed is inclusive, because it makes my mental health so much better.
Totally. And like with social media, that is the one thing we have control over.
Yeah.
Is like what we're seeing, like what's showing up on our feed. And
absolutely.
I just did that purge recently too, because like
just so good.
It does.
Like,
being in this industry too. Like I think I was just telling you before we started recording that like I didn't even realize like the body image issues I had. And then I've been like processing it so much recently, and I'm like, oh, like even just being a photographer for 4 years and like just being connected in the industry of like other people shooting, like the other day I like went through and I was like looking at the photographers I was following, and there was like several people that I looked at, and I was just like scrolling, and it, like I swear to God, it looked like the same exact body in like every single picture.
I'm pretty sure I know like what photographers.
There's multiple. There's like a lot of them, but like, and then like right before I unfollowed like all of them, I saw like one of them posted like on their story that I don't mean to like call out, but just like the experience that I had with it of like. He posted this thing of like Facetune fails or whatever of like women editing their bodies, and he's like, I don't know why y'all do this. Like you guys are all so beautiful, and I was like,
you have like one. Yeah, except you have one body type. Yeah.
So I know. That was an unfollow, but
good for you. Yeah.
But it goes deep. Like it goes, and like you said, like we don't even like realize that like the images the media is feeding us are like just being programmed. Yeah, and we don't even like realize the self-talk that we like have towards ourselves until we start observing it.
And it's so interesting. Like that's what I see with my clients the most. I'm like, how do you speak to yourself? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what's that self-dialogue look like? And we like talk about it. And I'm like, well, like what are some of these like nice things that you say to yourself? And they're like, I don't even know how to talk kindly to myself. Like I don't even know where to start. And I'm like, it blows my mind. And I was the same type of person where it's like, you almost feel like if you speak to yourself kindly, then you're going to become complacent or conceited.
Right.
Like I hear this a lot where it's like, I didn't want to be conceited, or I didn't want to be okay with where I was, so I had to talk down to myself. And it's like, I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like that is so, like you would never say that stuff to somebody else or a child, yet we just all day are so negative with our self-talk.
Right. And it's like talking ourselves in circles, and like I've noticed this with like even getting ready, and like when I started like observing my thoughts, like before I was like going out or like looking in the mirror, like I didn't even realize that I was like, oh shit, like basically since puberty I've been talking to myself this way.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, that's gross. Ugh, no.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I look fat today. And it's just like such little stuff, but it's like if you were to remove like your mind and have it sit with you for a day, you'd literally be like, you're a bitch.
Right.
Like you'd be like, I do not want to hang out with this person. Yet we don't like observe our own thoughts and think like, is this thought helpful? Like, should I give power to this? But like when we start speaking to ourselves kindly, we're like, ooh, this feels weird. I don't like it. And I'm like, but this is what we should be doing.
Right. And like, I'm pretty sure all my guy friends that I go out with don't do it. I'm pretty sure they're like, yeah, look fly as fuck, let's go. Like,
oh my God. Like, I wish I had the confidence of like a 45-year-old, like basic white man, like
for real.
Like so much confidence. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? Where did we not get this?
Because society's always telling us to be that one thing, and like just pushing that like in the images and in the like just the language.
It's just keep us small. Like our body's small, our mind's small. It's just like stay small and be quiet.
Totally. I like wrote that affirmation down the other day. I was like, no, because I'm always doing that. I'm always like, oh no, like leave room for the other people. But like I'm like, oh, you can take up space.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, let me fucking take up as much space as I want now. But it's like there is still this resistance where it's like as women we've been taught to like be polite and be put together and be sweet and accommodating. And I'm like, why can't I be a fucking bitch because this guy over here is being a dick? Like,
right.
you know, it's just so, the like dynamics are so different.
Right. And almost like as if like if we go like way back to like just like all of women's history of like just like serving to please men and serving to like exist for like the male gaze too. Like I've been fascinated by that on Instagram because I've started following some women who are like just very open about like embracing their sensuality and their intimacy. And like when I first started observing these things, I was kind of like, oh, like, I was like, how do you, like, I was like, I don't want, like, I don't know, because I think my thought, like, immediately goes to, like, what the men are thinking, like, if I were to do something like that, or, like, the judgments, because I've been around guys, I've been surrounded by guys, I went to engineering school that was, like, 75% males, and, like, I've been around the, like, locker room talk and, like, fucking fraternities and shit, disturbing. And, like, I know what guys say about women, like, they, like, the way that they, and it's never, like, and I think I have much healthier friendships now. So, like, the language has shifted. But, like, I've heard, like, the language just be, like, solely around, like, superficiality and looks and bodies and, like, everything. And not a single word about, like, hey, she's, like, super dope. And she's running her own business. And, like, she, like, look at her go. Like, I don't know. Yeah, and that's what, like, I grew up with in that kind of, you know, community of men where it was, like, a woman's self-worth was based on her appearance and how hot she was. And you know, as women or as like a teenage girl, you want to feel like you belong. You want to feel like you're desired and like the guys in the group like you, and no one liked me. And I associate that as the girls that are liked are small and tiny and cute. And I wasn't. And I was like, and I had been bullied about that. And I was like, okay, for me to belong, for me to fit in, I have to be small and I have to be skinny and I have to be quiet. And then I was like, wait, but, like, what about, like, how I, like, do I have some autonomy here? Like, so much of my self-worth was, like, wrapped up in, like, being desired by men. Totally, because that's what we're, like, programmed to. Like, even growing up, like, I remember, like, my family was very religious growing up, and when one time, like, at church, like, they had this whole talk with the girls about how we couldn't wear tank tops or leggings because we had to be nice to the men. Yeah, and you don't want to, like, you know, set them off. Yeah, in 7th grade. No, I remember wearing, like, a spaghetti strap tank top to school, and a teacher had told me, you need to go home and change. And I was like, but one of my friends who is a lot more, like, smaller chested than me was wearing the same thing, and she didn't get in trouble about it. And they were like, well, you know, like, if guys stare at you, like, you could distract them. And it's like, so we're teaching women to cover up, but also we're sex symbols. But then at the same time, we're not teaching men how to respect women and not view them as just, like, bodies. And I'm like, what the fuck? Right. But then I went home and had to change because I had to go back to school. Oh. You know, like, it was such bullshit. Such bullshit. I know. Even at, like, that young age, I remember thinking, I was like, no. And then I was told I was, like, being bad because I was saying no. And I was like, no. Like, yeah, it's like there's this defiance, but then, like, over time, you're kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just, like, conform and be quiet. Right. Even, like, I remember I was wearing, like, jewelry one time. And, like, I think it was my mom that was like, oh, you don't want to, like, give anyone the wrong impression. And, like, I was like... Like, what? Like, it's jewelry. Yeah. I want to be feminine and, like, that, like, I think that's, to circle it back to, like, embracing our sensuality without the male gaze, like, just, like, feeling safe to express that. Yeah. I feel like, without worrying about, like, what the other people will think. And, like, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion about, like, the safety of expressing our, like, feminine energy. Know. But I feel like that's, like, the root of, like, the wounded feminine in the world is, like, that we need to feel, like, safe to express our sensuality for us. Like, for, like, our own worth. The amount of times that I've had, like, people on my Instagram tell me, like, oh, you just do this for likes. Oh, you just do this for attention. And now I've really curated, like, an Instagram that is literally 85% women. And I'm so happy that most of my followers are women. Yes. But I'm just like, why can't I post a picture of myself where I feel sexy without it being, like, a thirst trap? Right. Like, I'm just like, we don't call out men for that behavior. It's so interesting. It is so interesting. It's crazy. And, social media, like... totally dilutes it. It's like a different ballgame these days than it was. But it's crazy. I mean, I think all women can relate to that, like, in some capacity. Yeah. Just that, like, journey and just being able to, like, embrace that on our own. And as we, like, slowly observe the self-talk over time, like, it's crazy, like, even without, like, consciously shifting it, like, as it, like, transitions. And I'm like, oh, or, like, I even caught myself the other day and I was like, no. And I like went to the mirror and I was like, you are beautiful. You are abundant.
Yeah.
You
and
are
having
loving,
the awareness is like the biggest part where it's like, okay, now I'm actually aware of how I speak to myself. And now it's like, now like shift that into like the more positive self-talk. And it's like, I've had so many clients just be like, well, it doesn't really make me feel better, or it feels awkward, or X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, listen, it's not going to make you feel 100% better. It might be 1% better. But over time, we actually create new neural pathways for our brain to take. And they're like, wait, what do you mean? I'm like, we always take the easiest pathway. And if you don't know what this other one leads to, or if your brain doesn't even have another option, it's always going to take what we take. And if that's a negative self-talk, then that's what it's going to be. So it's like constant implementation, which people are like, that sounds like so much work. And I'm like, but how do you feel right now?
Exactly. It's like more work to like stay stuck in that zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, I always forget the statistics, but it's like something like 85% of the time it's like subconscious programming.
Isn't that so interesting?
So interesting. And it does take work to like reprogram those pathways, but then like that consistent like showing up for ourselves like over time, like
it's like it does pay off.
It does.
You're like weird.
And like you almost like don't even realize it until you like look back at where you were like 3 years ago, and you're like, oh.
If I looked at like my diaries and like I mean, it is like I'm like reading some like sad Lifetime movie. It's so disturbing, and just like it just blows my mind that like I was there and now I'm here. And I just think that's like a huge testament that like we are adaptable, we are able to change, but like it is work, but it's like it's worth it, but like it's hard to see on the other side of that when you're in it.
Right. What do you think like is the number one like mindset shift that like women can take like when it comes to that?
In a sense of like, what are they seeing most in terms of like their I mean, most women I talk to, it's the body stuff. It's like feeling just so insecure in their bodies, and just really just feeling uncomfortable in the bodies that they have. And when you can like shift that mindset, when they can start putting themselves in these uncomfortable situations of like wearing a tank top or like wearing a crop top or doing all these things, and like realizing like, I can put myself in these anxiety provoking situations, I can breathe through it, or I can meditate, I can do all these things. And like when that starts to shift, then they can like push it a little bit farther. And it's just so cool to see like when something actually does work, and then they're like, oh my God, this feels so great. Or like, oh my God, I can't believe that my relationship with food is shifting. And just, I mean, it's just, and it's also interconnected that, a lot of people think eating disorders, it's all just food. And it like boils over into every area of your life, your relationships, your work relationships. Like it's not just like food and body image related. It's like how we interact with everything. And then people are like, everything else is starting to shift too. And it's just so cool.
Yeah, because it does bleed into like our energy, like energetically how we're showing up. Because like if like when I was stuck in like my past mindset, like the trained mindset, like I remember I would like not go out sometimes because I would try on every outfit in my closet.
And then it's isolating and you're withdrawing, and then and it's just like it like piles on.
And it's crazy how much you've been talking a lot about body dysmorphia too. And like, I've been looking back to like when I was like at the like just like peak of like my unhealthy mindset and like my unhealthy like relationship with my body, and like I could see like in how I was dressing then that like I didn't value it. But then I was like looking back at pictures from that time, and I was like the tiniest I ever was.
It blows my mind that like
so wild.
I remember I just recently like Time Hop, sent me a photo or something like that, and I was like, holy crap, I remember vividly having like a mental breakdown to wear this bikini. I had been crying on my floor because I was so fat and I was so gross. And I look and I'm like, what was I seeing? And it's like I'm literally 40 pounds heavier than like what I was in that photo, and I'm just like I see myself so differently, and it's like kind of fucked up that your brain can play such tricks on you. And I don't think people realize that. And a lot of the women that I work with are like, well, I don't see myself that way. And I'm like, of course you don't. And it's like one of the affirmations or like healthy self-dialogue that we work on is like, I can't be the judge of my own body image right now. Like I need to trust the people around me because I don't see myself the way others do. And until I'm healed from my eating disorder, I can't trust what I see in the mirror. But they're so like, but I see that. I'm like, I know, but it's not real.
Right.
And it's like, how do you explain that? It's just so interesting.
Right. My friend Tori and I were talking about that the other day, and Tori always says this. She's like, always like, I wish people could like see themselves the way other people see them.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like all women, I feel like, have some sort of like, whether it's an eating disorder or body dysmorphia or even just like small judgments against their body. Like all women have that like twisted like mindset because it's been like warped, and like it's so wild, like just being able to like see that person and be like, really, like you, like I never would have thought that like you had like it, like body image issues, or like even with myself. And it just I want to like learn about the science of like how that works, of like how our brain is like like just not seeing that clearly.
I know,
at all.
it's so bizarre. And it's also just like the way we talk about our bodies is, and in such a self-hatred type of way, is so normal with dialogue with women.
Right.
You know, the whole example of like the Mean Girls kind of scene where they're talking about like, oh, you know, I hate this part about my body and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I have bad breath in the morning. And it was like she was in a community that didn't talk about that stuff, and then was brought into this like very showy type of like high school. And she's like, oh shit, now I need to start talking about this stuff because it's how I bond with women. Right. And it's like this weird bonding experience of like, let's all go around the room and talk about what we hate. And then I'm going to tell you, but no, you're beautiful. And then say, oh, but I'm so fat. And it's like, it's like, why do we do that?
Right.
It's so weird and bizarre. And now like being recovered, when I'm around that talk and I'm like, fuck, no wonder I felt like shit about my body. It's like, this girl's saying she's fat. She's talking about going on keto and doing X, Y, and Z. And then we're all like, we go home and we're like, honey, I'm going to go on this diet, or I'm going to do this, or, oh, I'm going to start on Monday, and so-and-so thinks she's fat. If she thinks she's fat, then and it's just like, what? Like, why do we do this as women? Right. Why do we talk about ourselves even like openly with each other?
Right. It's crazy. It's like out in the open. And
yeah.
Do you know the comedian, like, I think it's Eliza Schlesinger?
Oh, I fucking love her.
I fucking love her too. And like, we were watching his skit she did the other day where it's like this group of women who are all like, they're all like doing that exact same thing of like, they can't accept the compliment of like, oh, you look so beautiful. She's like, no, like I look so fat. Like, no, I look so. And then she's like, no, but like your hair looks so good. She's like, no, it doesn't. Like I look like shit. And then like the last girl, like they say something like a compliment to her, and she's like, oh, thanks. And they're all like, what?
Yeah, it's like so weird. And I get so many women saying like, I don't want to be conceited. I don't want to. And it's like, at what point were we told that like loving yourself is conceited?
Right.
Like we're supposed to love ourselves.
Right. And then we can love other people more. And like see that, like once we can like see the light in ourselves, and like I think we learn, and like a lot of your work is that it's like, it's all about confidence and energy anyways. Yeah. Like that's what people like pick up on when you're around them. And like,
absolutely.
You could be the hottest person. I like that like John Mayer quote too, that it's like you can't be, if you have like a good face, like you're just like pretty, but like in order to be beautiful, like you need to be a good person.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, like that's what people feel, and like oftentimes people aren't thinking the things about our bodies that like we're thinking, like we said.
No, because everybody else is worrying about themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no one's thinking about what you look like in a bikini because they're too worried about how they look. And it just that's like so ruins experiences.
Totally, because it can get in your head.
Oh yeah, there's so many times that I like literally would lay like not moving on like a towel while my friends were playing volleyball because I was too like embarrassed to see my body jiggle, and I like needed to be some like plank of wood or something.
Right. Saying I've been in situations like that as well, or like not like constantly like shifting my outfit.
Yeah, where
or,
it's like you know, you like put a pillow over your stomach, or like you know, you cover up like this, and it's like, I mean, that energy is just not inviting, you know?
Right. It's closed off.
Yeah.
And I've been loving all the posts on Instagram recently of, like, these, like, beautiful women, like, because anyone can, like, do the right pose and, like, look good and, like, suck in your stomach. And then, like, I love the, like, contrasting.
Oh, yeah, where it's, like Instagram reality. Yeah.
And then they're, like, sitting, like, normally. And it's, like, literally every single fucking person.
Yeah, like, if your body, like, your body's meant to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so wild, like, how distorted it can get. should, and women should like love ourselves and like accept compliments and be able to like own that, because it truly does like make a huge difference. Like you said, it like bleeds into the energy of the rest of your life.
And we just pick better people to be around us. Like if we're picking people that prey on your insecurities to keep you small, like you're never going to feel good in the relationships that you're in. And that's what I did, is I constantly picked people that like loved for me to be small.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Have you noticed like shifts in, because I know you said like in LA and like you have like shifted your relationships and now you're in a beautiful relationship with Carl. So I guess, what does that transition look like? And do you feel like your self-talk has like transformed like all those areas?
Oh my God, it's so different. And honestly, it's just so much more honest, because I think in the past I felt as a woman, and I was just listening, if you haven't listened to Men, Women, and Worthiness by Brene Brown, it talks about like the different, like kind of how women feel worthy and how men feel worthy, and women it's like needing to be perfect and put together, and you can't show that you're having a hard time because you need to just have a smile on your face and like everything's perfect and great. And I think in the past it was like I would try so hard to please my partner or be what I thought this person wanted me to be.
Right.
And then I left feeling like, why doesn't he like me? Or why do I feel so empty? And it's like, well, I wasn't showing up as like my true self. It was what I thought he wanted me to be. And always just like never sharing how I truly felt about things when I was angry. Like that's a really hard emotion for me to share, is like saying, I'm actually angry with you, or I'm feeling really insecure. And being with Carl, being able to say like, babe, I'm just like not feeling good in my body today. Like, I don't know what it is, like X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, not that he needs to affirm me. I can affirm myself, and I'm in a place where I can do that. But it's so nice that he doesn't shame me for sharing that, and like can just hold space and like validate me with what I need to hear, while also like just supporting me. And that's just been, it's just been so open and honest, and it's just really nice. And every relationship I've been in, I feel this like deep fear of being abandoned, of if I'm not perfect, if I am upset with them, if we start a fight, if X, Y, and Z, they're gonna leave me. And with Carl, it's like I feel so secure in our like partnership that I'm like, I can express like, this kind of pissed me off that you did this, and he's like, okay, let's talk about it, you know. And it's just so light, and it's so, it just feels so refreshing to actually have a legitimate, healthy relationship.
Right.
And it does feel easy in a sense, like we bicker or we have some arguments, but like, you know, I've almost believed that like toxic relationships were just like passionate and great and exciting. And I'm like, but this is what I want. And like almost these healthy ones are like, this is boring and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I'm like, no, like this feels good. Like my emotions aren't fucking up and down all the time. I'm not constantly anxious. And it's just really nice to like be able to like breathe.
Right. Yeah. And like giving yourself that permission to like show up as your whole self. And then like that, each of you doing that like allows each of you to like express yourselves even clearer. And it's so beautiful. I have that abandonment wound too. And it's like so crazy. Like our inability to like I literally like convince myself that like if I make a mistake that like everyone's going to leave me.
Oh, I know. I have this, I hate knowing or thinking that somebody doesn't like me or just like, you know, feeling like someone's mad at me. And it's interesting because I had a wonderful, wonderful marriage to see growing up. Like my parents have been married for over 35 years, like such a healthy, wonderful relationship. Yet I'm picking these like toxic ass men. I'm like, what is going on here? But have you read the book Attached?
No, need to.
Oh my God, girl. It's all about like attachment theories and kind of like how in our relationships we can either be like anxiously attached or like avoidant. And like I was constantly picking avoidant people, which validated my fear that I'm going to be abandoned because they would pull away when I became clingy. And it was like we pick people that like actually like runs out our like narrative, which is so weird. I'm like, why would I pick someone that I know will do this? But it's like this weird comfort and this weird safe space, kind of like an eating disorder. It's like a weird comfort.
It's like familiar.
Yeah, and it's so hard to like break that cycle. But you would love that book. It's so good.
Putting that on the reading list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've talked about that with like so many women recently. Like, just like that ability to like actually register that like you're like, oh, this is the third partner I've been with that expresses these tendencies. Or like for me it was narcissists too.
Dude,
like,
I've dated so many narcissists and manipulative
gaslighting.
Oh my God. Well, right before Carl, I mean, literally 2 days prior, I broke things off with someone, and I swear that the universe like sent me Carl and was like, you've passed the test. You broke up with a narcissist. And like, yeah, I met him 2 days later at the park, and it was just like, it was so easy, and it was like no convincing, no like begging someone to be with me. And he was just like, yeah, are we gonna like be together? And I was like an exclusive? Like, you don't want to sleep with other women? And he was just like, yeah. And I'm like this is too good to be true. And he's just like, okay. Like, it was just so odd to me because I was so used to that, like, you know, being in a situationship.
Yeah.
The worst.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And that like gaslighting teaches you that like you don't deserve to like express your emotions.
Oh my God, I was like terrified.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you're able to get that reward from like cutting it off.
Yeah, it only took like, you know, 6 years of being basically single and like working on myself, but totally worth it.
Yeah, I honestly feel like everyone should do that. Like,
oh my God. Yeah, and honestly, it was like, you know, it'd get pretty lonely, and like I had flings here and there, dated people here and there, but I'm just so happy that like, I feel like over time, my little relationships got shorter and shorter when I noticed these like kind of tendencies, whereas like before it was like 4 years and then 2 years, and that, you know, it's like after like a couple months I'm like, oh no, like, and then you like are able to walk away, but it takes fucking time.
It really does. Yeah,
it's so hard to like unlearn all of that shit.
Totally, especially when it's like been repetitively like enforced with like
and I'm like, why do I keep dating like narcissists? I'm like, oh, I'm picking them.
Yeah. We just had, do you know Desiree? She was the last podcast guest, and she was saying like that was like her awakening too. That she's like, oh, the common thread was me. Like,
it's like, oh shit. Like, you're kind of like, ooh.
Yeah.
Fuck, like, I guess I got to be the one to do the work.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, we have that control. Like, we can choose, and the more we show up for ourselves, and the more we like create that space to like, because I feel like that's also a common thing that like I've been in phases in my life where I've done this too, of like just like going from like one relationship to the next relationship to the next, and then you don't have that like time to actually like be with yourself. And
like process and like just like feel grounded again, and like be able to like be alone. And
come back to yourself, because those relationships can like take you away from yourself.
Absolutely.
Be like, who am I? How do I want to show up? And then that's when like magical relationships like your and Carl's appear, because then you're actually have that confidence.
It was like yourself. The universe was like, she's ready.
You passed. I love that. That's amazing. So with being in the like fitness industry and everything, and that like duality of like being in like the eating disorder recovery as well as the fitness industry, like what does that dynamic look like? And
it's super interesting. You know, I feel like the industry is like really shifting, and people are starting to kind of pick up on these like kind of disordered tendencies. But you know, I mean, the diet industry and fitness industry, I feel like, are just the same. And they just prey on you being insecure. And I think the more we can kind of talk about, you know, that movement and fitness doesn't need to be following Kayla Itness's like BBG like program where you like work out 6 days a week and you do X, Y, and Z, where it's like movement can be dancing, it can be going for walks, it can be like, you know, stretching, it can be like static movement, it can be all of these things. And like, I don't feel like a lot of people register that like movement doesn't have to be in the gym, it doesn't have to be me going to a class, it doesn't have to be X, Y, and Z. And when I don't do those things, then I feel worthless and I feel lazy. And it's like, I've really tried, because I definitely used to have orthorexia, which is like obsessively eating clean and working out, and you know, I really had to find this healthy relationship with fitness in a world that promotes like excessive working out as healthy. And it's like, it was so hard for me to do that, of like cutting out everything that triggered me and then like slowly adding it back in. But it's just a weird industry to be in, because the amount of fitness influencers that I see that promote this like, oh, do this program and you can have flat abs in 10 days or do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no wonder we have these expectations of what our bodies should look like when we see women in these thin bodies doing these workouts, when 99% of it is genetics, and like we buy into this shit. And it's like, I just hope that the more we go on, like women of all different shapes and sizes can promote kind of like their fitness journeys or their movement journeys, and kind of share like what makes them happy, to show that it doesn't have to be lifting and you know, running and doing X, Y, and Z a certain amount of times during the week, because it's just like, that's not sustainable.
Exactly.
You know, and that's one thing I realized is like, I love movement. I genuinely love working out and movement, but like, I need to do it in a way that's sustainable for me, so I can continue to do that. And doing it 7 days a week, running like 6 miles a day is not sustainable.
Totally. And like doing it to like feel good, rather than being like, I have to do this so that I look good, or like,
it's like all aesthetic goals, where it's like, now it's like, I know this mentally makes me feel great. And if like, knowing that every day could be different, so I'm gonna wake up and say like, what do I need today? Like today I was gonna go on the Peloton, then I was like, you know what, I'm ovulating, I'm tired, I'm gonna go for a walk. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed. And just like really knowing that like you can change your choice.
Exactly. And so much of that is like different for women than it is for men. And like, I have been fascinated recently with studying how like the male hormones are on the like circadian rhythm, which resets every 24 hours. So they can, and the world is very masculine structured, like the like repetitive consistency and like similar like things every single day. But women's hormones reset like every 30 days, and we're like always like, it's this like constant like flow of like up and down. And I've been experimenting more with Elisa Vitti has like this app called MyFlow, and she like talks about like
what kind of movements you need for what part of the cycle. It's so cool.
And just being okay with being like, oh, like I'm supposed to be more gentle with myself during this time. And
like lifting during a certain period or like doing something excessive is actually not going to be good for you. And like, I always found that super interesting too. And I don't know whose podcast it was on, but she said that like she now knows that certain weeks she's better at like doing her podcast episodes or doing admin work, and like knowing that like each week and each day is going to be totally different.
Totally, and being okay with that, and like not judging ourselves, and it bleeds into everything, like business, like life, and these phases of like being more external or being more internal, or like just allowing ourselves. That's another like wounded feminine thing I've been working through personally, is just like being gentle and compassionate with myself.
Grace and compassion are like my biggest things.
Like not having to be that like perfectionism all the time.
It's so exhausting.
It is.
Like I have no mental space to think about things that I should actually be worrying about. Like, I like couldn't process any of my anxiety that was like going on, because I was just so focused on other things and being perfect, that it was like my brain. Carl jokes when I'm like feeling super anxious, he's like, I feel like that's like 10 gerbils on wheels, just like and it's like, it's just constant like it's like just like I need to take a breath, and like it's just so nice to have like compassion for yourself.
And just take the pressure off of like, oh, I'm still gonna be loved if I like take a break today, or if I like, say no, or like
or when I tell Carl like, oh babe, I'm sorry, I'm feeling real snappy and irritable today, and he's like, okay, good to know that it's not me. Like just being honest, like we're allowed to have fucking moods.
Exactly. And like experience the wide range of human emotions. Like we don't need to show up as this like same perfect person every single day. Like
the book The Happiness Trap is so good.
Loving all these book
it's basically about how like as an American society we try so hard to be happy all the time that it actually makes us more depressed. Because we like don't feel a range of human emotions, or we try so hard to ignore these like uncomfortable bad emotions that we like ignore them, and then they like fester and like build up to the point where we like are so reactive, and then we're like, oh my god, I hate this, I need to be happy, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, if you would have just like sat in it and like acknowledged like, ooh, I'm feeling really like depressed right now, or I'm feeling really insecure, like they're going to flow through you a lot quicker.
Exactly. And they need to be like held. And like Tori, I reference Tori so much. I hope she listens to this podcast. But like she was telling me about this example of like like holding things super gently and just like looking at them, and then when they're like ready to like release themselves, like allow them to like, rather than like throwing things on the ground or like being like, no, I don't want to think about it, like, because then they'll come back up, like just like looking at it and being gentle with it and allowing itself to like blow away whenever it needs to, and then like, the process is easier.
Exactly. And it's like, welcome to the human experience. Like, we're meant to feel a range of emotions.
For real. And it can get so easy to like be in, especially like in the realm of like positivity and like spirituality,
like toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity. Like they're like, good.
I'm like, I know you're upset behind these closed doors.
I know. Or like only talking, like I remember when I first got like my introduction to like mindset work, I was like surrounded by this like group of people that would like only talk about like good vibes only, or if I would like bring up something like that I was going through, they'd be like, oh, don't be negative. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, I guess I'll go cry by myself.
Yeah, like, what? Like,
yeah, it's so toxic.
It is. And like we're meant to experience those, and just being gentle with those and like allowing ourselves to feel that way.
Yeah.
And when it comes to our bodies too, like I love that you're transparent about like, you're like, just because I'm recovered doesn't mean that it's like perfect all the time. Like
and like that's the biggest thing I think with my clients. They like hope that there's this like switch of like, well, when I'm recovered, then I don't have to worry about this. And it's like the eating disorder voice is always going to exist.
Yeah.
But the goal is that our healthy self becomes so strong that we're able to like, when this eating disorder voice does come up, we can see it with curiosity of like asking ourselves like, what's really going on here? And like not being able to engage in the eating disorder behaviors is the biggest thing, where it's like, I still have eating disorder thoughts. I have bad body days, but I'm not engaging in the behaviors that I thought would soothe me, that were actually hurting me, and choosing like more helpful and healthy behaviors now. Like that's the biggest part of recovery, is like the behavior part.
Exactly. And like then you can like catch it through that like observation. And it doesn't ever, I feel like none of our like traumas or triggers necessarily ever completely go away, but it's just that like each time it comes up, it's like an invitation to like go deeper and like explore deeper and integrate it like even more. So it's such a journey, and it's like such a process, and I just like love everything you stand for in terms of just being gentle with ourselves and being open and being vulnerable, and like I mean, you have a very large platform, and being able to like be that vulnerable and like share that with like so many women who are like looking up to you, and like just allowing yourself to be vulnerable gives other people permission to like be vulnerable.
And honestly, I think that's just why I do it, because it's like, I imagine me being 14 and being able to maybe see stuff like that would have helped me so fucking much. Like, I'm like, what would my younger self need, and how can I be that for her?
Yes, I love that. I feel like everyone should approach their Instagram platforms in that way.
Like how can we help our younger selves?
Yes, I love that.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, we'll end on one final question. So, what do you think makes a happy human, and what would be your advice for anyone who wants to be a happy human?
Honestly, I feel like what we just said
Literally.
is like actually like embracing these uncomfortable emotions makes you truly happy and joyful. Like if we numb what we feel, then we also numb the like really happy, helpful, like really comfortable emotions of happiness and joy. So like for us to be happy, we actually have to be sad and like angry and like feel those uncomfortable emotions and sit in them. Because when we do feel joy and happiness, it's gonna feel so fucking good.
Exactly. I love that so much.
Oh, this is so wonderful.
You're so wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope y'all enjoyed that episode, and to stay in touch with Julia and all of her amazing wisdom, make sure to give her a follow at FitFat and all that on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we would love to connect with you more. Reviews on Apple Podcasts are always very much appreciated, so we can hear your feedback. And if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to know your biggest takeaways. Share to your Instagram story, and make sure to tag us at Happy Humans Project so we can connect more with you there and plug you into the Happy Humans community.